Welcome to day 2 of the Global Disability Innovation Summit here from UCL, where technology works perfectly. It's so lovely to welcome you back. We're delighted that you've been able to join us. I can't tell you what a great lineup we've got to go this morning. I'll be joined on stage shortly by the wonderful Chris Patno and Kush Kanodia, but before we get to that point, you have me for a little while. And it's quite fitting, I think, that this morning I am not going to talk about how brilliant AT 2030 is or how much I love GDI Hub, though please take both of those things as read. I'm going to talk a little bit about joy and why it's really important, I think, in the struggle for justice. So, first of all, take a moment. You know that moment when you're completely in flow? You have completely forgotten space and time. You're both exhilarated and completely at peace. What's the word for that moment? What do we call it? And when's the last time you felt it? Hopefully momentarily often, but for a sustained period of time. Maybe you went on an amazing date that lasted for hours. Maybe it was your kid's first day at school. Maybe it's the moment you found the patterns in the data that you'd been looking at for weeks or months or years. Maybe it's the afternoon when you finally explained your idea and your colleagues got it. Maybe it was belly laughing with your friends all afternoon. Or maybe it was one of those summer evenings where day turns into night, turns into morning, and all of a sudden you've just had this brilliant night out that's only filled you with summer love. I think we call that feeling joy. And I have 2 mental health conditions, so I'm not a frequent flyer. I'm also a social scientist, so it's quite difficult for me to say this is joy and not spend a long time contesting the term, but bear with. We'll go with joy. And isn't joy what life's about? Isn't it how we fill our cup? Why we give meaning to the things that we do? Don't we all deserve joy? Isn't it what we crawl through the trenches for? Isn't it what we shoulder the burdens for? Isn't it what we drink the Kool-Aid for? Well, it is for me, anyway. And some of our most brilliant teachers have talked a little bit about the importance of understanding our why. Amartya Sen asked really famously, equality of what? What is it that we're fighting for? Less famously, Austin and Holloway asked, AT for what? So disability inclusion for what? Social justice for what? Getting out of bed sometimes? 2 mental health conditions. For what? I think it's for joy. And I think, therefore, that our aim should be to enable all folks to find joy, right? The more it evades me, the more sure I am that it is our why. So I've recently become convinced that joy is not something we can add after the fact. It's a necessary factor in the claiming of justice itself. It is the for what? For joy. Joy for disabled people, joy for AT users, joy for all people. Joy is a radical, political, important part of our journey, and it's also fairly scarce. But if the what is joy, then I also think we need to think about our how. I've spent a lot of my life fighting for justice, and fighting is the right word. From hanging off the 4th plinth of Trafalgar Square with a megaphone, demanding queer rights in my early 20s, and I would say that's before Nelson Mandela was on it, to meetings with ministers, meetings in Parliament, ambassadors' residences, talking to slum dwellers, whatever I've been doing, I've been fighting and fighting and fighting as hard as I can to support the causes of justice that I've wanted to support. I've completely absorbed the struggle for justice into my body. I've given my mind, I've given myself. And on the whole, there's been some success. There have been moments of success in our movements that we can point to. But did I trade my joy for justice? What cost was this fighting? Sometimes my incredibly dysregulated nervous system tells me I did. And I'm really aware of the privilege I have when saying this. It feels really uncomfortable still to acknowledge the impact on me, myself, my body, my joy, when we have so much to fight for, right? There's so much to do. But if it's joy for all, it's really for everybody. And so then I get a bit stuck. So I think back a little bit to the joyful times, the times I asked you to think about at the beginning. And the first thing I think of, and for any PhD students in the room, this might bring you happiness, my PhD viva. I had a crazy 3 months this year that started with my PhD viva. It was absolute joy. I got to revel in the stories and the patterns in the research, to talk to 3 people that had read my work, all 200 pages of it, and were interested, and had interesting questions about it. It was absolute joy. The second moment came a month later when I was sitting on the stage in the United Nations in New York, next to the Minister for Disabilities from the UK. He'd flown out to announce more investment into our programme and to congratulate us on our work. That was joyful not because I was so brilliant. It was joyful because I was standing there representing all of your work and the work we've done with people and communities around the world. And the third moment came a few days after that, where I was passing my yoga teacher training exam, sitting in a room, watching the people I'd taught laying down in rest in Shavasana at the end of the practice. I was still, I was content, I was holding space for their rest and their peace, and I felt joy. And I guess these are the moments that are in stark contrast to the days in the trenches. These are the moments that sustain us. And I thought more then about this idea of joy being scarce, and I wondered, is it a zero-sum game? Do I have to reallocate joy from myself to someone else, from the global north to the global south, from men to disabled women, from me to the work? But surely joy can't be a zero-sum game. The stories we tell ourselves when we tell ourselves we don't deserve joy, we must work harder, they're not kind stories. They're not compassionate stories. They're really stories of lack. And they're quite loud, in my head anyway. So if joy is our purpose, its distribution has to be more than a zero-sum game. And when I started to think about this, I was reminded, as I very often am, of the words of Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde, and if you don't know who she is, look her up, said, "The master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about lasting change. The master's tools will not dismantle the master's house." 1984, she said this, by the way. It's quite clever. So overwork, not resting, getting from A to B at any cost, a failure to engage those that matter because it takes too long, a scant regard for diversity, exclusive systems, a concentration of power and money in the hands of the few. These are the master's tools. They will not dismantle the master's house. They will not dismantle the systems of discrimination and oppression that we seek to change, and they will not guide us to a fairer future. They may help us win a little bit to meet a deadline or hit a milestone, but they're not going to create a fairer world. So I think we need new tools. I think we have new tools. I think maybe our new tools are participation and leadership by the most affected, practices of inclusion, managing access every day, listening harder, noticing more, sharing our fortune and our problems, building a high trust environment holding boundaries, saying no, being kind, reflecting, filling our own cups, teaching what we know, learning what we don't. I guess this is my call to action. Our tools can build a fairer world. And when I think about my yoga practice now, I have set an intention for that work, which is to co-create spaces where people can find peace and joy. And I guess I'm really reflective of that in my day job too. So you can't find joy and peace if you don't have food and safety and shelter and education for your kids and the assistive technology that you need. You also can't find joy and peace if you're not valued and you don't rest. Maybe you also can't find joy and peace when you're using the tools of the master to win. We must recalibrate our striving. Striving for justice is important, but it must incorporate the enablement of joy as outcome and process. His master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house. I'll paraphrase Amartya Sen, probably badly. He wrote a book in 1999 that was really important called Development as Freedom, and he said a lot, but in short he said, the means of development are as important as the ends. And what he meant by that is how we get somewhere is as important as where we're going to get. So if joy is our why, it must also be joyful in the tools that we use and how we get there. I suggest then that joy is a fundamental part of the justice we seek. Joy is justice for disabled people, for AT users, for all of us. Joy in justice, that's what I'm for. And many of us are attracted to this work because we have our own experience of discrimination and oppression. So we want to work exceptionally hard to make the world a better place. This means we feel its need urgently, but we are not alone. We are important and unique beings, but we stand on the shoulders of giants. We are just energy. We are just cells. So connected to each other. I think our first job is probably to ensure that the energy that we bring to our bodies, our minds, our friends, our colleagues, has a positive impact on the universe. I reflect on the quote that President Obama had woven into the rug on the Oval Office, which was actually a Dr. King quote. His version of it said, "The arc of the moral universe or history is long, but it bends towards justice." And if we believe that, which I have to, then we should take our time, right? To look after ourselves on this journey together. And when we look after ourselves, then collectively we can move for change, joyfully and with intention. I'll write and speak more about this in the years to come. And if you're interested, do get in touch. But for now, I offer you a suggestion. Notice the joyful things this week. And notice the things that you feel negatively activated by. Next week, switch one. Do more joy and less negative activation. And then see if you get more done. Thank you.